The issue is also your past as a businessman, and you know, because you had to deal with this in the primary campaign as well, when you say you want to bring accountability to Tallahassee and accountability to the governor's office, your opponents say, here is a man who was the CEO of a healthcare company that was fined a record $1.7 billion by the federal government for massive fraud. They will say, how can this man bring accountability to government?
Well, that's what my opponent said in the primary, and he lost. I mean, everybody knows we built, and I've built a number of wonderful companies. That company in particular, you know, I took my life savings of $125,000, and in 9 years we built the largest healthcare provider in the world. Our patient satisfaction were way higher than the national average.
How do you answer that to the Florida voters when they look to you and say, how did the company you ran wind up paying $1.7 billion for fraud?
Sure. Well, as you know, my Republican opponent brought that up, and it didn't work because people care about jobs. They know that I did a great job. They know I started that company from scratch, $125,000, my life savings. Over 9 years, we built a wonderful company, 343 hospitals, 135 surgery centers, took care of over 100,000 patients a day with 285,000 employees. We dramatically reduced healthcare inflation.
Many people might be wondering, well, how can we trust you?
Well, the voters decided. They look at my background. I started that company with my life savings of $125,000. Over 9 years, we built the company up to 343 hospitals, 135 surgery centers, took care of over 100,000 patients a day, and had 285,000 employees. We built a great company. Healthcare inflation, which is what consumers care about, dropped from 18% a year to less than 1%. We have better outcomes, better patient satisfaction.
But Rick, you also ran a company that was accused of defrauding the government, yet you're kind of avoiding that this morning.
No, I've told people all along from the day I got into the race, said, look, you know, when you run a company, you build a company, anything that happens in that company, you take responsibility. I do. People made mistakes. Now, what I tell people is when you're the president or CEO of a company, you take responsibility, and I do, and I learned a lot of lessons. And what I tell people is, you know, when you're in business, anything that goes wrong, you should take responsibility if you're the CEO. I do. Now, in contrast, let's think about what politicians do. We have the highest unemployment on record. Has there been a politician take responsibility? We have almost 50% of our homeowners underwater on their mortgages. Anybody take responsibility? We're walking to a $5+ billion debt. What they know from me is I built a great company. I take responsibility for anything that goes wrong, and I'll make sure that when I'm governor, I'll do the same thing. The difference is, let's think about where we are in the state. We have the highest unemployment on record. We have almost 50% of our homeowners underwater on the mortgages. We're walking into a $5+ billion deficit. Has any politician in the state taken any responsibility for putting us in this position? No. What I tell people all the time is, I'm a business person. I know that, you know, you put up your money, you try to build your companies, and you take responsibility for what goes wrong. I do. When I'm governor, I hope nothing goes wrong, but if it does, you know, I'll show up, I'll take responsibility, and I'll fix it. But that's the difference. When I'm governor, if something goes wrong, I hope it doesn't, I'll take responsibility. But politicians don't. I mean, think about it. We have the highest unemployment on record. No politician's taking responsibility for that in this state. We have homeowners underwater, almost 50%. Nobody takes responsibility. They like me because I'll take responsibility, and they know I've built private sector jobs all my life, and that's our biggest issue. I'm going to build jobs in this state.